Women and Black women have been a part of Presbyterian history since Presbyterians established themselves on these shores. But it was not until the 1950s, 60s, and 70s that these women were allowed to come out of the shadows and to take their rightful positions as elected and ordained members of the clergy, elders, deacons, and trustees. One of these women was Dr. Thelma Cornelia Davidson Adair. In June 1976, at the 188th General Assembly of the United Presbyterian Church in Baltimore, Maryland, Dr. Adair was elected and became the first African American female moderator and the second female moderator. Dr. Adair was born on August 29, 1920, and grew up in Iron Station, North Carolina. She graduated from both Barbara Scotia and Bennett colleges and earned her doctorate from Columbia University Teachers College. She was a ruling elder in the Mount Morris Presbyterian Church and a leader in Black Presbyterians United. As moderator from 1976 to 1977, Dr. Adair traveled the world, visiting 70 countries and meeting with local and national leaders, including President Gerald Ford. She celebrated her 100th birthday in 2020. Dr. Katie Geneva Cannon, 1950 to 2018, was the first African American woman ordained as a teaching elder in the Presbyterian Church, in the United Presbyterian Church. She was ordained in 1974 by the Catawba Presbytery in Shelby, North Carolina. Dr. Cannon is considered the founder of Womanist Theology and Ethics as a field of study. She spent her childhood in Kannapolis, North Carolina, the home of Cannon Mills. Dr. Cannon graduated from Barbara Scotia with a degree in education. In 1974, she earned her Master of Divinity from the Interdenominational Theological Center in Atlanta, Georgia. In 1983, she earned both a master's and a doctor of philosophy from Union Theological Seminary in New York. And in 1989, she earned a doctorate in ethics, making her the first African American to receive both degrees in the seminary. She served as parish associate at First African Presbyterian Church in Philadelphia, a church that was established in 1807, and she served as professor at Union Presbyterian Seminary, Davidson College, Williams College, and was on the faculty of Temple University, the Episcopal Divinity School, and Harvard Divinity School. She served as president for the Society for the Study of Black Religion from 2004 to 2008, and she founded the Center for Womanist Leadership in 2012. Dr. Cannon is the author of Black Womanist Ethics, Katie's Canon, Womanism and the Soul of the Black Community, and Teaching Preaching, Isaac R. Clarke and Black Sacred Rhetoric, published in 2002. In 2011, she edited many documents, including the Oxford Handbook of African American Theology. Reverend Dr. Cannon won the Excellence in Theological Education Award during the 223rd General Assembly of the Presbyterian Church USA in June 2018. She died in August of the same year. As we researched the women who would be a part of today's program, we were surprised to learn that Mrs. Lea Rita Hankerson was the very first African American female moderator in our own presbytery, the Presbytery of New Hope. It was not until 2014 that she was elected to the office. You'll hear more about the amazing Mrs. Hankerson later in our service. The Presbyterian women of New Hope, on the other hand, were quicker to elect an African American female as moderator. The very first African American female to be elected moderator of PW was Sarah Bell Lucas. Sarah Bell Lucas is a member of Covenant Presbyterian Church in Durham. She served as the PW leader from 1990 until 1992.
Reverend Rebecca Reyes was the first Hispanic woman to be ordained in the Presbyterian Church USA. This took place in 1979 and marked the start of a remarkable and compassionate ministry which has now spanned more than 4 decades. Reverend Reyes grew up in Texas and comes from a long line of leaders in the Mexican-American Presbyterian community there. She earned a bachelor's degree from Texas A&M University and then went on to become the first Hispanic female to graduate from Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary. In 2016, she received Austin Seminary's Distinguished Alumni Award. Reverend Reyes has served in several roles with the PCUSA, including being a staff associate for youth and young adult ministry, and later she was a staff associate for international ministry. For 7 years, she was the campus minister at UNC Chapel Hill. In 1990, Reverend Reyes became the director of the Latino Health Services at Duke University Hospital, and she led that department for about 20 years. In this role, she helped the hospital administration work compassionately with the Spanish-speaking population by overseeing many aspects of healthcare for Latino people. Reverend Reyes has served as a member of the Ghost Ranch Board of Directors, and she is currently a parish associate at the Church of Reconciliation in Chapel Hill. Since 2016, she has served as the chair of the Presbyterian Committee on the Self-Development of People. This group provides medical support, starts new ministries, and feeds the homeless. Through its work, more than 5,600 community projects have addressed economic and social justice issues in more than 67 countries. Reverend Reyes has spent decades ministering to people both inside and outside of church walls. She has done so with grace, compassion, joy, energy, and vision.
Dr. Isabel Wood Rogers, a Presbyterian ruling elder, taught 50 years at several colleges, most especially at what is now Union Presbyterian Theological Seminary in Richmond and Charlotte. She taught social ethics and Hebrew prophets. Dr. Rogers, better known as Dr. Izzy, was a counselor for abused women with low self-esteem on campus and in community shelters. In 1987-1988, she was elected moderator of the General Assembly of the recently reunified Presbyterian Church USA for a 1-year term. During all of these accomplishments, she also did much to help the church become more enriching for women, children, persons of color, and LGBTQIA pluses over that period of time.
Katie Ricks grew up in North Carolina, a self-proclaimed military brat. After college and grad school, she moved to Barnesville, Georgia in the late 1990s, where during a service in a small chapel, she heard a distinct call from God. In 1996, the General Assembly made an addition to the Book of Order that essentially banned LGBT persons from being candidates for ordination. 2 years later, in 1998, Katie Ricks applied to attend Columbia Theological Seminary, which was not known as an affirming school. Katie was open about being a lesbian. She was accepted, and as a student helped start Imago Dei, an organization that promotes the welcome and inclusion of all people. She worked on promoting the acceptance of LGBTQ people in the church, but still, upon graduating, she was not eligible to be ordained. Despite this, she was called as an associate pastor at the Church of the Reconciliation in Chapel Hill, who hired her simply because she was the best person for the job. 10 years later, in 2011, the General Assembly took out the clause that was added in 1996 and simply put that ordained persons must follow the teachings of Jesus Christ. Now, LGBT persons, people like Ricks, who had been serving for years, could be formally recognized by their churches and presbyteries as ordained ministers. On Sunday, April 15, 2012, Katie Ricks was ordained at University Presbyterian Church in Chapel Hill and became the first out lesbian to be ordained for ministry in the Presbyterian Church USA. The Reverend Katie Ricks now serves as Assistant Dean for Student Life and Formation at her alma mater, Columbia Theological Seminary, which now includes several other out LGBTQ people in its staff and leadership, a big change from when she attended as a student. This time around at Columbia, Katie is responsible for creating space for others to discern, claim, and live into the person God has created them to be.